Today we are talking with Nell Newman. Nell, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
So, you have got quite an interesting story. One of the most interesting things, besides being the daughter of famous celebrities, is when you were studying in school, you got a degree in human ecology. What is human ecology?
Human ecology has probably become a little bit more refined in its definition, but basically it's sort of an interdisciplinary study that looks at how humans relate to their environment in terms of the social and the natural mission of, our place on the planet. And I went to College of the Atlantic in Bar Harbor, Maine, graduating in 88, I think it was, 88 or 89. And that was the only degree that was offered by College of the Atlantic. And it fit me to a T, so I'm really glad I went there. It was a wonderful little tiny college. So I'm really glad that that's the spot I chose.
Yeah, and how do you think that early interest in ecology and that kind of thing, how did that all get started for you?
I grew up in Connecticut in Westport back when it was very rural, and basically my backyard was the woods and the river that ran through it, and we had a pack of dogs, and I ran around the woods and fished, and so I was a budding biologist at a young age. It was always, being outdoors and being immersed in nature was really the way I grew up. So that was the way that was my education. My education process was living outside and observing nature and observing birds. And one of the first things that I discovered at a young age, I was, fascinated by birds. I was a budding ornithologist and mesmerized by the fact that they could fly and I couldn't. And I found it extremely frustrating and discovered that my favorite bird of prey, the peregrine falcon, was extinct east of the Mississippi. And that was, I was probably about 9 or 10, and I'd read about extinction because I'd, read read books on different species of animals that, had gone extinct prior to my life. The dodo bird and the passenger pigeon. We managed to eat them all, but this was unique in the fact that it was an effect of mankind on an animal in something I hadn't really explored before at age 9 or 10, which was, they'd gone extinct east of the Mississippi due to the use of a pesticide called DDT that was sprayed on plants to kill bugs and had worked its way up through the food chain. And to me, that was really a mystery, a mystery and a horrifying thought that there was, something that we were spraying on our food that could kill off the fastest bird in the sky. So that was really how I was indoctrinated at a young age, and that was my early interest.
Yeah, and it obviously it stayed with you. And now one of the books you wrote is the Newman's Own Organic Guide to the Good Life: Simple Measures that Benefit You and the Place You Live. And tell us a little about that book. And it says that you've got practical advice on how to live a more environmentally conscious life. And I'd love to hear some of that.
Well, this was sort of a joint effort between myself, my business partner, Pete, a wonderful editor who used to be at Random House, Mary Barr, and a group of us who sat down and really tried to spell out the simple ways that you can make changes in your life. Because, nobody's perfect, and it is overwhelming. And it's important to remember that every little thing that you do does have an effect. My mom really taught me that. So we just decided to, put down some easy recommendations and some guidelines. It's a little old now. I think it came out in 2003. I mean, some of the information's dated. We'd love to do a new one. And but it is still it's still sort of the basis of how does one make a change. And what changes can you make that are worthwhile? So I think it's still a good guide.
Yeah, and some of those changes.
My overall perspective is really just being mindful about what your impact is, which is certainly what my human ecology degree was based on. On a daily basis, when you go through your life, to really be mindful about what you buy, what it's wrapped in. Can you make that trip, on your bicycle? Just all of those little things. In our consumeristic world, how does one really make mindful choices about what you need on a daily basis, and whatever ways you can use to reduce, your waste stream. So I think it's more of a overall perspective than certainly specific examples. But overall, how can you be mindful about your consumption? Because think about it. Think about what would happen if you didn't have a garbage can. Where would stuff go? Could you compost it? Can you compost your paper bags? I mean, it's more of a mental state than than specific guidelines.
Right, and it starts with the individual and making the changes that you can make.